Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/IDOWorkHereLady, where people mistake employees for regular Joe schmoes. Guys, I know it's been a while since I've read anything from the sub, and today I'm diving back in due to popular demand by one person. One person keeps spamming me over and over and over again to do this sub. So guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy the stories, my friends, because they are ridiculous today. Oh, and do hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. Let's dive in. So, the general situation. I'm female, pale skin, blonde hair. I work for a family business that does construction work for private residents. I am the only female on the job. Boss is my dad, and no, I do not get coddled. So at the time of the event, I was 19 years old and working to pay for college. We were working on a deck job, in a state that's hot, humid, and was summer at the time. My boss left to run some errands, and I was alone to move lumber from the driveway to the back of the house. Now, this deck was also getting a double-level fireplace. Basically, it's one fireplace on the deck and another below, all connected. No idea how it works. But one of the few jobs we don't do is masonry. So the mason, we'll call him Joel, comes by with his crew of 4 men. 3 of them I recognize, if not know by name. Joel says hi and asks where my dad is. Me, currently holding a 2x12x16 stringer, says, he's running errands, but he says you guys could do what you need. Let me know if the lumber's in your way. He says no worries. Then I assume he directs the other guys on what the job is. Now, all the guys I know aren't bothering to look at me other than the initial hello and are getting around to work. The 4th guy, however, has been staring at me the whole time with a look on his face. The kind of look that says, I have something I want to ask. Oh boy, so being a girl in the trade, I know that look. But usually, I get it from guys in the 50s and 60s. It was weird that the guy looked to be the same age as me. Now, I take my lumber and stack it in the pile I'd been building up before heading back for more of my workout. Then the guy I don't know steps in front of me and says, hey, how old are you? I told him I'm 19 and try to move around him, and he asked, what are you doing? Now, at this point, I think he's a little dense, cause it should be obvious what I'm doing. I told him I'm moving lumber closer to the deck and the saw. He asked, why? For the deck? He looks like he's building up to something, but I'm getting a little impatient because it's hot, I feel gross, and I don't particularly want to be answering personal questions to a guy that I just met. He again asked, why? I told him so I can pay for school. Once again, I try to get around, and again, he blocks me. He suddenly gets a surprised Pikachu face and said, you work here? I told him, yeah, the same thing you should be doing. This time, he's too stunned to stop me, and I walk around him. And then I hear the other guys laughing at him. My friends, I love this comment right here, and it's exactly what I was thinking when I read the story. This person says, you work here? No, I just like to carry wood around in stupid degree heat. I also love that OP answered with, yep, and you should be working too. Way to shut him down, OP. Way to shut him down. So I work at a somewhat large gas station. Our normal uniform is a pair of black pants and a bright polo with the store logo. So it was a pretty cold day yesterday, and I was wearing my hoodie because the store is built very cheap and isn't insulated. I was sitting in the chair for a couple of minutes by the eating area, because there was nobody in the store when I saw a car pull in, so I went back behind the counter. In comes delusional lady. She walks up to my counter and said, excuse me, where's the cashier? I told her, you're looking at him, what can I do for you? She says, I come here every morning and I've never seen you. I just saw you walk from that table to behind the counter. You don't even have a uniform. Now, the reason that's relevant is because I always work late evenings, so I've never seen this lady in my life. I said, oh, I'm sorry about that. I actually do work here. It's just cold in here and the heat doesn't really work. So I took off my hoodie to prove to her that I did in fact work here, showing her my polo with the store logo. She then pulled out her phone as 2 other customers walked in, and she told them, this guy doesn't work here. I think he's stealing. I'm calling the police. Now, she said that as she walked off to the sitting area and dialed the police. Meanwhile, I guess the 2 other people realized that she was an idiot and let me ring them up. She watched the entire time, and when they arrived, she told the police that I was pocketing money and could be dangerous. We ended up having to call my manager to the store to explain that I did in fact work there. They let her off with a warning and banned her from the store. The police would not let the store stay open for the entire hour it took the manager to get there. I was never detained as it was obvious I worked there, but they insisted on talking to the manager. And did I mention I'm the assistant manager? Ugh. Okay. So, just to recap, this woman accused somebody that she's never seen work there before as a thief. She then proceeded to call the police on the phone, and the whole time she was on the phone, she talked out loud accusing OP of stealing money and potentially being dangerous. I don't know if this lady was ballsy or dumb, because if that was a real thief and he was armed and dangerous, that could have gone pretty wacky. But hey, Karens are the bravest people on earth. They're not scared of anybody. I'm a volunteer search and rescue canine handler, and my dogs are all pit bulls. I've been in search and rescue for 11 years now, and never really had much of an issue. Every once in a while, we do come across someone who doesn't understand what we do, but after a few minutes of explaining it, people change their attitudes, and even get excited because we allow them to follow us and see what we're doing. Yesterday, I was working my younger dog, who's almost ready to certify. We're working 20 acres of private property out of the 600 acres available to use. So my dog is off leash, has 3 collars on him, and is searching wonderfully. I'm watching my dog, and I can tell he has human scent. He's working around a large woodpile about 100 yards from me when he takes off over a ridgeline. A few minutes later, he comes back and jumps on me, which is how he tells me he's found someone. I start to follow him when I hear a lady yelling. By this time, my dog has come back again and told me again that he's found somebody. Still running behind my dog, I come around a corner, and there's Karen, in all her glory, swinging a hiking pole at my dog. I give my dog tons of praise. I mean, there's a lady screaming at him and waving a scary pole in his face, and he didn't care at all. He did his job very well, and that's what I want to see in my search and rescue dogs. Karen says, this area is private property. It's not an off-leash area. He could have attacked me. Why are you letting your dog off-leash? I told her, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm with search and rescue, and we have permission to train our dogs off-leash. Karen responds, No dogs are allowed off-leash. Your dog is dangerous. I told her, ma'am, you're on private property. My dog is training to find missing people. Karen then whips out her phone and starts to record me saying, You think this behavior is acceptable? I told her, yeah, as a matter of fact, this is his job. So long story short, Karen demands to speak to my supervisor. Well, how my team works is, we have senior members. We technically have one person in charge of the whole team, but we're considered supervisors and in charge of everything. We have full rights to speak on behalf of the team, dismiss people for dangerous behavior, make decisions, etc. I told her I am the supervisor, and she says, There's someone above you. I told her actually no, there isn't. I'm sorry you're upset, but what happened is what my dog is supposed to do. She told me that I should ask people before I let my dog run up to them, and I said, You are trespassing on private property. You shouldn't be here. Karen then asked for my name, and I told her, You don't need that. Karen then turns to the 2 men that were with me and takes photos of them and my dog, who is still off leash. She asked them, Do you approve of this? What are your names? Both guys shrugged and said, She's the one in charge. Then finally Karen huffed off yelling, and my dog got back to work to find the guy that was hidden 20 feet away from where this whole thing took place. Later, she ran into the rest of the senior members and had words about how my dog charged at her, acted very aggressive, and how I gave him treats for that behavior. They also tried to explain it to her, and she told them to hush. Oh, and our dogs don't wear vests while working because where we are has tons of underbrush, and some of our dogs have gotten seriously injured wearing vests. OP does share a picture of the dog mentioned in the story, and the dog looks like an absolute sweetheart, probably out there ready to save lives at this very moment. Very, very cool job, OP. So, I used to work at a nightclub for many years as a side gig. The club had a lot of pretty diverse events, but every Saturday night was one of the biggest parties in the city, so it brought out the basics in droves. Just your regular young city dwellers or bridge hoppers flocking to get their groove on. This place would get packed. It was like squeezing through a sardine can packed. So packed that often people couldn't dance. They just sat there smashed up against each other and sort of wiggling a bit, at least back in its heyday. So one of my jobs was to tend to the bathrooms. It was disgusting, but that chore needed to be done on busy Saturday nights. Honestly, that part of the job alone I have several tales of woe from. There were more than a few bathrooms, and this one was a single stall on the top floor. This one always had a line, and had the most issues, as people liked its privacy to do all sorts of things you can imagine people doing during a raging party. Anyway, I marched my merry butt up the stairs, fighting the crowd back as best I could, to refill toilet paper, and as usual, there was quite a line. Now, I'm not only in uniform with a radio hanging off my butt, with cleaning towels, etc., but my arms were full of toilet paper. I tried to communicate to the line as best I could over blaring music and endless screaming, that I needed to go next so they'd have the ability to wipe their butts if needed. Even though the line was filled with wobbly clubgoers pretty desperate to use the toilet, they seemed to understand, except for this one chick. She was very basic, like you'd hire her to stand as an extra in a Gap commercial. She was young, blonde, and otherwise forgettable, though attractive for sure. Immediately, she was irate and started to yell that I couldn't cut the line. While I'm trying to assure her drunk butt that I'll just be 2 seconds, since all I had to do was put down toilet paper and wipe a surface, the door opened. I immediately rushed in, and the lady tried to follow me into the single stall bathroom. Excuse me? She's losing her mind, and I got pretty scared, so I quickly started to shut the door, careful not to close her in at the same time and lock it. I radio security for help and wait. I didn't think anything more of it, because clubs are crazy and stuff like this always happens on the regular. But later, I'm outside on break, and who do I see? Little Miss Basic in handcuffs. She'd been set down on the curb by police for assaulting security. And she's crying saying, "I didn't hit anyone." I was asked to fill out a statement, and security told me what she did to them. So once they arrived upstairs at her freaking out on the bathroom door, they pulled her away and tried to calm her down. Instead of calming down and listening to reason, she decided to put up a fight. They started to escort her out when she went feral and started to hit them on their heads, mostly going for their faces and leaving a huge scratch near the head of the security's eye. It took everything in me not to die laughing when they hauled the little lady off for assaulting 2 people. I'm also really glad that I got her out of the bathroom before she got to me too. Hey man, they don't call it liquid courage for nothing. Guys, I've seen my fair share of drunk people picking fights with bouncers and security, and it never ever ends well. The last thing you want to do is claw at security's face. Oh my god, what was she thinking? So a little background. My father owns a telecommunications repair company, and before that, he worked in the industry for years. And since I hated daycare, I spent every summer helping him learn to weld, rig cell phone tower antennas, stuff like that. By the time I was 19 and dropped out of college, I decided to get my certification and ask my dad for a job. Well, he got a huge contract and hired 5 brand new guys with myself and another veteran that's been working with him for years. So I end up with this massive idiot who got fired from multiple different physical therapy clinics and is now 40 years old and unhireable by any other industry. He also has a massive superiority complex because he has a bachelor's, and that somehow makes him a better tradesman than I. So on to the story. We're on our first site on the first day of the job for a major client, taking down old antennas and putting up new ones. The crew lead and I drive up to the site after morning meetings at the hotel with my dad, and we've brought lunch for everyone. I drop the sandwiches in the server room and go over to the idiot who's using a trailer hitch winch to haul a brand new antenna up the tower to the other guys who are 700 feet up at the top waiting to install it. He's got the antenna about 150 feet up at this point. And I said, "Hey man, I think you've got your fasteners on backwards." So a little note, the fasteners have to be perfect because the higher the antenna gets, the more wind there is and the more tension on the winch. If they're on backwards, they aren't doing their job. And he says, "They're fine." I told him, "No, they're definitely backwards." He told me I said, "They're fine. Go home, bootlicker." I told him, "No, they're backwards, and by the time it gets up there, the winch is gonna slip and that antenna is gonna drop. You've gotta bring it back down to fix it." He then says to me, "I don't have to do a goddamn thing for someone who's half my age and couldn't make it through a year of college. The only reason you're here is that you're daddy's kid, and you can't make it in the real world." Right as he finishes the sentence, I hear the winch crack, so I grab the guy and run both of us into the server shelter, while the winch flies out of the hitch mount and the antenna drops like a rock onto the truck, carving straight through the cab and into the ground underneath. I said to him, so you can't rig right and you don't have the common sense to put the pin in to secure the winch to the truck? He then argued that there's no way that it was his fault. And I said, not only is it your fault, but now I get to explain to both OSHA and our insurance how we managed to damage over $70,000 in equipment and $30,000 in our client's equipment in the first day on the job. So I spent the rest of the day calling OSHA, my dad, our insurance, and my mother to make sure all the right reports get filed and all of our asses are covered on all bases. At the end of the day, the reports are finished and my dad calls me up and tells me to fire the guy for negligence. So I go up to him and say, "Hey, you're being let go. I'm sorry, but this incident is something we can't afford to happen again." And since it was obvious, he cuts me off and says, "You can't fire me." I told him, "I'm pretty sure I can let you go. My dad told me to. And if you don't believe him, go talk to him." He then responds by saying, "Let's go talk to the boss, right now." At this time, it's about 4 p.m. We drive 3 hours. We interrupt to my family's dinner and then sit there smugly on the couch in my dad's home office while he literally screams at the guy for costing him $100,000 and maybe a lost contract, and basically tells the guy that he's filing a civil suit for negligence, since I specifically came to him and told him that he was doing something incorrectly. The guy says, "What does he know? He's just a kid." My dad responds, "I taught him how to rig a winch when he was 8 years old and he did it right. You're a 40-year-old man who managed to crush an entire truck. Get out of my house." Oh my god, this story is so crazy. Definitely grounds to get canned after that big accident. I can't believe the guy tried to argue that he shouldn't be fired after an accident that big. And the way he talks to the owner's son like he doesn't give a care in the world. Ugh, good luck finding a job somewhere else, buddy. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of I do work here, lady. Guys, we made it. If you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. And if you missed the last episode, I will link it right here. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.